I was asked to speak about trends, right? A trend that's going to be important in 2026. And I'll be honest with you up front. This is not a new trend. This is a trend that has probably been true for the last several years. And it will continue to be true into the future if we don't finally actually take some action to solve it. And I know there are some organizations that are certainly doing so. Some of my clients are certainly doing that. But it's something we need to deal with. And it's the sort of the plight of the middle manager within our organization. And I think, like I said, this is not a new trend. I mean, we know that if we're paying attention to what's happening with managers, we know that they kind of have, I think, the hardest job inside of an organization because they are sandwiched between employee needs, right? Everything that an employee needs, what do they need? Direction, they need support, they need guidance, they need coaching, they need feedback, they need all the things, right? And they're sort of sandwiched in the pressure that comes downhill from executives to execute on the strategy, to maximize performance, to retain our people, to find and hire great people, to motivate our teams. And for years and years, I've been involved in the work of employee engagement. And you look at that work, and oftentimes we're looking at surveys. We're using surveys to measure employee engagement, and it's always interesting to me because Gallup was the first one to tell us 30 years ago. I think they were the ones that coined the phrase, employees don't leave jobs, they leave what? And I can hear you saying it, managers, right? It's the manager. We have a bad manager problem, and it kind of became this thing that we took on as a mantra, right? It's always the managers. And if employees aren't getting what they need, it's their manager's fault, of course. If the organization isn't performing, if we're not retaining people, if employees aren't engaged, whose fault is it? It's the manager. It's always the manager. So why would anyone in their right mind want this job? I don't know. But there are a lot of people doing it because that is their role and they're doing the best they can. And so this job has been hard since the beginning. Right, since the very beginning, like Perry talked about, the legacies that we've inherited from the Industrial Revolution, which is kind of when the birth of management happened. From the very early days, management had a terrible and hard, difficult job, and it's only continued to get harder and more difficult over time. And so, if we understand and recognize this job is challenging as is. And it has been nothing new there. But let's throw on top of it what's happened over the last, let's call it 5 years, and sort of what's happening up to now. If we think about, kind of what's happening in organizations today, there is most assuredly a pressure and intensity, kind of a volume knob being turned up by executives on the organization, on employees, but specifically on managers to do more with less. I was actually just talking with someone this morning about some research, a massive research project that they haven't even published yet. But one of the things they were sharing with me about the research is that there's a huge emphasis in what they heard from executives about sort of their focus is shifting back to productivity, right? That next year is really going to be all about productivity. And so they're expecting more and more and more. And the manager is right at the heart of that, right there. If employees aren't doing more, then it's the manager's fault, as it always is. But then add on top of that, if I'm a manager, I'm getting more pressure to get more out of my employee. But at the same token, the employee needs have changed. The employee needs or expectations of me have changed too, based on kind of the experience we went through in the pandemic. Now I have employees that expect me to care about their feelings. I need to be able to have a conversation with them about things outside of work. I need to be able to support their well-being. I need to understand if they're a caretaker outside of work, and I need to be accommodating that. And I have to deal with all of that. At the same time, I'm being pressured to try to extract more performance out of you from the folks at the top. That's not a great place to be. And oh, by the way, there's a couple studies out as I was putting together the research for this. There's a couple studies that were suggesting that managers spend, when they survey managers and ask them, they're spending between 60 and 75% of their days in meetings. And in fact, recently I've been having some conversations with chief, like CHROs and chief people officers about developing managers, kind of the challenge of skilling up managers. And one of the things that came up in most of the conversations was that even when a manager knows they need to skill up, they're craving more development, more support, they can't make time for it. Right? Even when you make it available, the managers that even tell you that they want it don't show up because they're so time poor. They're so stretched because of these other factors, they can't even get to the thing that would help them do their job more effectively. So we have all of this going on. Do more with less. I've got to care in a different way. I have to play a bigger role for my employees. I have no time to do that because I'm sitting in a bunch of meetings all day long, most of which add no value to me and my ability to do my job. And then let's pile on to that the environment, as Perry said, we're in an environment of constant and accelerating change. So I'm having to be a change manager all the time, which creates maximum uncertainty for employees. And guess what? Uncertainty is what gives birth to disengagement because it undermines my relationship and connection with my work and with the organization. So change is really difficult. And oh, by the way, not only all of this going on, right, the degree of difficulty of management already increasing. And now today, I have to manage probably some people that are maybe in the office, some people that are maybe remote, some people that I don't know when they're going to be in the office or where they're going to be. And so I have to be able to not only manage effectively, but manage effectively maybe hybridly or maybe asynchronously. I don't know, but I have to take the skills I don't have and then try to make them work on a landscape that I don't really even understand because it just got introduced to me. And oh, by the way, AI crashed the party. And so I've got a whole group of employees that don't know how to use this thing. Executives at the top of the organization have decided that we're all going to use AI to become 3 times more productive, but they haven't given me the support or the guidance or the training to help support my employees and what that looks like. So then my employees are concerned that they don't know how to do it, but they're also looking around saying, I'm pretty sure they're going to try to eliminate my job. So they're afraid and they're playing defense. And here sits the manager. And the manager is supposed to be like, no, don't worry. I'm going to keep you engaged and happy and keep you all pulling in the right direction. Right. So, and you've got a manager that's also supposed to be using AI, maybe worrying about whether they're going to get replaced by AI. And they're supposed to be carrying all this at the same time. And throw on top of that there was a couple of studies that I found. These are 2025 studies of managers that said up to 75% of the managers in these surveys reported receiving absolutely no training, either at the point of promotion when they moved from being a non-manager to a manager, or since then. And so you have people that are in a job. They're tasked with managing these other humans and caring for the performance of these other humans and making sure that they're meeting expectations. And yet, I've never been given any formal training on how to do it. And the job is getting increasingly complex by the day. And so I'm falling farther and farther behind. And so this is the current state of middle managers. This is where we are. And guess what? The trend is it ain't getting better, right? Because of all the factors that I just shared. Unless we intervene, it's not getting better. So what does this mean? What's happening? Well, there's a whole list of studies out there that are like alarm bells going off. For example, this is from a Wiley Workplace Index research they did. 47% of people managers in their survey, and I think this one included a couple thousand people, reporting severe levels of stress. And then another separate survey says up to a third, almost a third of US employees say their boss is too stressed to help them at work. Not they're too busy, not that they're unskilled, they are too stressed. And the employee, they're so stressed, the employee knows they're so stressed that they can't provide support. Not a good not a good place to be. On top of that, back to Gallup, Gallup's most recent data set says that manager engagement has actually dropped 3 points. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but if you know much about the Gallup engagement data, that's a huge drop. Year over year, 3% is huge. Managers are struggling. They're disengaged. Well, and just think about that. That also says that the people that we have that we're all expecting to be accountable for engaging our people are not engaged. 70% of them themselves are not engaged. So how effectively do you think they're doing at engaging our people if they themselves are not engaged? I don't think that's probably ending well for most. And then you throw on top of that this is a recent study too, LinkedIn data. Bad manager might drive 69% of US employees to quit their jobs. That was sort of what employees were saying. And so you look at all of this, that means we have a bunch of managers that are struggling. We have a bunch of managers that are at risk eventually. And there's quite a bit of data that says like a manager burnout is a huge, huge risk, and it's increasing because of all these factors. And so you're going to have people quit. You're going to have people burn out. You're going to have people spin out. You're going to have all kinds of that. And that creates then a second order problem that Perry mentioned in his slide was this leadership gap, is that though everybody else in the organization that's a non-manager is watching this happen and saying, yeah, no, thanks. No, thanks. You want me to do what? You want me to take what job? No way. Right. Because they're watching this saying like, I don't want to do that. That's a terrible job. And so good luck getting your people to step up into those jobs because they've seen what happened, right? They feel it every day. So it's not a good situation. And so the trend that I'm sort of trying to put in front of you is more of a call to action or a sort of warning that this is a huge, huge issue within our organizations, and it's going to undercut and undermine our ability to succeed. It's only getting worse. AI is not going to solve this one for us, not in the near future. It's only exacerbating it. So we got to do something. So what do we do? Well, a couple just quick things I'll offer up, and there's a whole bunch of this is kind of like what Perry said. I could spend a half a day talking about what you should do or could do on this, but what I have for you are just 4 sort of things that if you do only these things, this would have a huge impact, I think, may move you in the right direction. Number 1 is check in with your managers because they are not okay. They are not okay. That means go talk to them, ask them how they're doing. This is one of the big blind spots in employee engagement work, right? Is that we do these surveys and then we analyze the surveys and we talk about employee engagement. And then we use that employee engagement to sort of bludgeon our managers over the head about all the things that they're not doing well or not doing enough or whatever, meeting the needs of the employees. But are you paying attention to the engagement of your managers? Like, what are you doing to make sure that managers engaged, that they're getting what they need? Is anybody making them feel valued or cared about or appreciated? I think we need to check ourselves and start checking in with our managers. Take care of your managers take care of your people take care of your customers. But if we're not taking care of our managers, that's where the cycle starts to break down. So check in with them, ask them what they're struggling with, ask them what they need, ask them what kinds of resources might be really valuable to them, what kind of support they're not getting. I'm going to guess they have a lot to say. Pay attention. Use that as your to-do list when you have that conversation. So that's number 1, check in. Number 2 is kill the stupid meetings. My goodness, we are just gutting people with useless, pointless meetings, right? You want more productivity, kill the meetings. Find a way to make fewer meetings, make meetings shorter, make meetings more effective, whatever it is. But like, we've got to be relentless about killing stupid meetings. The other thing that I've learned from talking with, I mentioned this earlier, talking with these HR executives about manager development, is that the reality is until we fix the sort of the workload on our managers and as we're working on the meetings, as we're trying to create space for them, they don't have time to step away for a half a day of training or an hour here and there. Like, you can provide them LinkedIn Learning and they're going to go, that's great. But it's like giving me a subscription, or it's like paying for a membership to go to the gym, but I have no time to ever go to the gym, right? Does that make me healthier? I don't think so. It doesn't get me in better shape if I don't actually use it. If I don't have time to use it, it doesn't matter. And so you have to find a way to provide them with the support they need as they need it. That might be coaching. It might be more bite-sized, on-demand, kind of very problem-centric training or support or interventions. But just-in-time support is what managers need right now. And then you've got to really get serious about supporting their well-being. Really helping them. They're struggling and they're going to continue to struggle. They're burning out. Part of that is because nobody's ever really supported them or equipped them or invested in them around how to manage their own well-being. And so this is really about taking care of the manager as a person, making sure that they have the tools to take care of themselves so that then they can take better care of other folks. So that is just like the beginning. But if you were to work on this checklist, it would have outsized impact on the effectiveness of your managers, which is going to have a ripple effect on everything else in your organization. So that is my trend for you and my to-do list for you. And if you want to connect with me, if you have questions or anything you want to push back on any of the ranting and assertions I made today, this is where you find me, my website, my LinkedIn. Come find me. I'm happy to chat.